Hi again, and we're going to talk about another book on firearms. And the author is John Farnam, who is a very, very senior figure in the firearms training community in the United States. And I first met John at an ASLET, American Society of Law Enforcement Trainers convention, where he was presenting classes. And the classes were on a first come, first serve basis because ASLED isn't um, totally firearms orientated, so they only had limited places. And I put my name down for his class. Anyway, there's a trade show before the actual conference, and I was chatting to Evan Marshall at the trade show when John Farnham came over, and he's an old friend of Evan. And Evan introduced us, and I mentioned that I'd signed up for his program. And he said, "Well, Dennis, if you don't get a place on it, I'm not going to teach it," which I thought was a very nice thing to say. Anyway, I got a place on it, and it was a very, very interesting program. And he put us through a shooting test, which I'll talk about a bit more in detail. But I was using my Heckler P7 at the time, and I can't remember where the supply of ammo came from, whether I'd bought it at the conference, but anyway, it was Blazer. And I hadn't realized that Blazer does not work in the P7. They don't like it in the MP5 and they don't like it in the P7. And so it was just a stoppage fest. I was just getting stoppage after stoppage, and it's a time test. Anyway, I managed to finish. It could have been timed with a calendar rather than with a timer. But John said to me, he said, "You stayed in the fight. You didn't give up." And it was an important lesson to me to when I've been running tests and guys have had similar problems, is to encourage them to sort the problem out, no matter how long it takes, because it's the mentality of keeping going, analyzing, diagnosing, sorting out the problem, maybe changing position and so on. Anyway, I trained with John at another conference, which was an ILFE, which is more firearms related. Excuse me. And he brought a new target out with him, which was your normal IPSC type silhouette, but it was three-dimensional. It was a box, and it had different chambers for the head, the thoracic area, and the pelvis. So John produces these, and it's kind of a flat pack deal where you had to fold them yourself. So he told us all to take one and fold it up. It was easy to do. And he explained what we were going to be doing with this target, which was really good, because the chambers took a balloon and the target was suspended from the balloon, and you had to shoot. So the target was moving towards you. And if you were shooting to the chest and there was no balloon in the chest, the balloon happened to be in the head, you had to switch to the head or to the pelvis. It gives you those target zone options. So we were all, "Oh yeah, this is going to be great." So we're folding up our targets. One of the guys who's a law enforcement firearms instructor said to the group, he said, "Oh, this is great, isn't it?" We all said, "Yeah." And one of the other guys said, "Yeah, but can you imagine trying to get the guys to do this? The guys we are training back home. Basically, all they want to do is drink coffee, shoot as little as possible, and go home." And to me, that was a big wake-up call that, I have the privilege really of training people who want to be there, who've paid money to be there and have invested time and effort into it. They want to get what they can out of a training, whereas a lot of firearms training takes place amongst people who got no interest in it, even though it's a life-saving skill for them. Anyway, John wrote a book. In fact, he's written two books. The first one was this one, the Street Smart Gun Book. It's an early book. It was published by Masayub in 86. And it covers all the fundamentals, all the basics, as you might expect from a book like this. But he goes quite a lot into tactics, a lot of tactical material, and a lot of gunfighting, the actual management of a gunfight. So it's a really good book. It's not just a little basic manual. And then he wrote this one, The Farnam Method of Defensive Handgunning. I actually picked this up on the at the ILFE. I put a nice inscription in it. And this book has got the techniques in, as you would expect. He starts off with a review of force and different methods of force, and he talks about edge weapons. And he'd done some training with Filipino instructors, or in the Filipino systems, and was very impressed with them. And he also was impressed with the push dagger. And, I share that view. It's a very, very useful self-protection weapon. So goes from that into all the different types of firearms and so on. One of the things that the book covers very, very well is the relationship between sights and trigger. And there's a really nice diagram illustrating it. And because shooting is about sights and trigger, the other physical things we do are quite easy. You can teach anyone to draw a pistol and put their arms out in front of them. Anybody who's got reasonable coordination, you can teach them to do that quickly. It's that sight and trigger management which defines shooting, being able to do that and put your shots on target under increasing degrees of stress. And it's explained very, very well in the book. It's something that is very hard to explain, and he does it very, very well. Now, the shooting test that I talked about when I had the stoppages in the P7 is a test that John has devised. And John was always somebody who embraced technology very, very well. In his early days as an instructor on the road, he used to go around with a Dualitron turning target system, which he'd set up on outdoor ranges, indoor ranges, and so on. And it gave you decision making. So he always had that. The test, which I call it the DTI test, the Defensive Training Institute, that's his training company, is an elegant and very, very interesting way of testing, and you get a lot of information from a very, very, very minimum amount of ammunition expenditure. And there's a whole chapter on it, the DTI Defensive Handgun Proficiency Test. Talks about it. He says 1 live round in the chamber, 4 live rounds, and 1 dummy round in the magazine. And the dummy round is not to be the first or last round in the magazine. So the exact location of the dummy round or drill round is unknown to the shooter. And then the other magazine has the rest of the ammo. So basically it requires 7 rounds plus a drill round. And it's at random between 2 magazines. That's the way I explain it. And he uses the electronic timer, which came onto the market for competition shooting many, many years ago. So you come up onto the line, your weapon is charged, and you don't know where the stoppages are going to occur. And on the timer, you have to draw and you have to fire all the rounds. And during that time, you will encounter 2 stoppages. One will be an in-battery stoppage and one will be a slide lockback stoppage. And you've got to analyze them, see which one it is, and do the correct remedial action. And then you get a feed out from the timer on the speed of your first hit, the rhythm between the shots, your split times, the time it takes you to clear each of the stoppages, the time it takes you to clear basically a tap rack, and the time it takes you to do a magazine change, which are spontaneous as well. And I think it's a wonderful test, and I've used it all over the world, really, since then. I always credit it to John, and the guys always get a lot out of it. And as I say, it uses technology in a very, very interesting and very informative way. So I got a lot out of training with John, and I certainly got a lot out of his books, and I do highly recommend them.